Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Administration Committee meeting to order. Clerk Galiazzi, could we have the roll, please?
Alderman Kruger. Here. Alderman Tom Grotti. Here. Alderman Ted Grotti. Here. Alderman Rapella. Here. Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Taylor.
Here.
Alderman Sevenick.
Here.
Alderman Langdon.
Here.
Thank you. We have minutes to approve from the Administration Committee meeting of March 4th, 2019. Is there a motion? Alderman Rapella.
I make the motion to approve the minutes for the Administration Committee on March 4th, 2019.
We have a motion by Alderman Rapella and a second by Alderman Kruger to approve the minutes. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. We're going to take up item 3 first this evening under action items. This is ordinance 519, an ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 1 of the Code of Ordinances having to do with licensing of dog, cat, or ferret and regulation of animals. This one includes chickens. This is introduced by Alderman Tom Grotti. Looking over the ordinance, the very first page is a list of definitions for you to keep in mind as you read through the ordinance. At the top of page 2, I'll call it, where it says permits required, this reviews the proposed permitting process. Thank you. The proposed permitting process that will impose a fee to be established by the Common Council and shall be consistent with the fee established for a spayed or neutered dog or cat. There is also a registration at the state level with the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture and Trade, Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection. Number 3, the second part of the second page relates to the care of and keeping of chickens and the coop requirements. In the backyard, it does mention that up to 6 chickens are allowed with a permit, 1 permit per R1 single-family resident district, R1A low-density single-family residential district, and R2 two-family resident district zone parcels. Backyard chickens would be allowed. No person, of course, shall keep any rooster. Number 4, on the third page, reviews the public health requirements for backyard hens. And the last element in the ordinance is in case of permit revocation. A permit is subject to revocation by the health officer upon failure to comply with any provisions in the ordinance. Such revocation is subject to appeal by the Board of Health. If once a permit is revoked, a permit shall not be reissued. I will reiterate that this ordinance is before us this evening, born out of an effort from a group of community members who were interested in keeping backyard hens as pets. They took their wish to the Sustainability Board, who reviewed the request and recommended the creation of an ordinance. They worked together with the Community Development Department, with the Health Department. This ordinance was reviewed by the Board of Health, as you saw in your minutes in your packet, and although the Board of Health does not take a position on any pets in general, they did recommend forwarding this ordinance to the Administration Committee because they felt, as stated in our minutes, that it was a fair, safe, and enforceable ordinance that they could use in the event enforcement was needed. The zoning ordinance that we had a public hearing about today was reviewed by the Plan Commission and approved. It was stated earlier that the Plan Commission approved having backyard hens or allowing backyard hens, and that is not the case. They approved the zoning change, and that change was contingent upon approval of the backyard hen ordinance by the Common Council. So with that, in keeping with the way I normally run meetings, I'll look for a motion and a second to start discussion on the topic. Alderman Tom Grady. Hang on just a second here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion for 01519, an ordinance amending Title VII, Chapter 1 of the Code of Ordinances, licensing of dogs, cats, or ferrets, and regulations of animals to include chickens. Huh?
Ordinance 5.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, okay, all right.
All right, we have a motion by Alderman Tom Grady. Is there a second? We have a second by Alderman Ted Grady. The floor is now open for discussion, questions. Alderman Ted Grady.
Thank you, Chair. I guess one of my I'll maybe have more later on, but the permit required, I mean, you talked about neutered license for cats or dogs. I think that's $7, correct? Are we looking at a one-time, is it $7 per chicken, or are you gonna go a total? I thought I read somewhere, saw somewhere, there was a total thing, but I don't know if that's up for debate yet, or if there is something you're leaning towards on a yearly basis, because I think some other municipalities only charge one time. They don't, it's not a continual type fee?
I believe, if I'm reading the ordinance correctly, it does state on an annual basis. So the fee would be charged annually, so every year.
Yeah, but for one, what's the amount?
And that I have a question on. Director McKinney.
So the discussion was that since a dog or a cat, I think a cat license is $7 per animal, that it would be 6 times 7, which is 42.
So it'd be 40, no matter if you have one chicken or 6 chickens, you were gonna
That's
charge
correct.
$42 a year.
And I would look
And
to
I
the
agree.
audience, and that is what I understood. That was what was suggested.
No, I'm on board with that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director McKinney. Alderman Kruger.
Okay, I'm gonna go because, you know, I don't believe that this should be voted on without at least a little bit of discussion here. I actually have quite a few questions and comments about it. I promised I was gonna keep an open mind about this, and I have talked to quite a few people in my district, and outside my district, and have the opinions from them on what their, whether or not they're in favor of this or not, and overall, it's not in favor of it. But a few questions here. First of all, with dogs and cats, I mean, I kind of have an issue with this being addressed as a pet to begin with also. We have an ordinance that limits the number of dogs and cats you can have to 4. So why would chickens not be applied to this number also? That you can't have more than four pets. I mean, they're gonna be outside, so if you have, technically, you can have 4 dogs and 6 chickens by this goes through. I mean, was that even considered at all on the total number of pets that are supposed to be allowed per household on dogs?
Well,
Right, no, but still, we have an ordinance that also states that no more than 4. And that wasn't addressed. We also have in the ordinance that, any animal that even worries another domestic animal is considered a nuisance. How is that gonna work? If a dog if the neighbor's dog starts barking at chickens and it freaks the chickens out, is that a worrisome chicken? You know, it's just, I think there's aspects of this that weren't even considered in other parts of the ordinance on it. Actually, I did talk with Dick, and I brought up some issues with, some of my concerns about it. And having it addressed as a pet, I don't know of any other pet that either eat their embryos or eat the pet itself. You don't find any other pet in a grocery store and stuff like that. It's if we're gonna regulate chicken coops and where they are in the yard, how come we're not regulating dog houses? That's an outside structure also, but yet we're classifying a chicken as a pet, but yet having all these restrictions on it that you don't place on pets normally. There's nothing in the ordinance that actually requires the chickens to actually be in the coops either. Unless I'm missing something here. I read the ordinance and it gives all the, dimensions for the coops where it has to be placed, but there's nothing in there that says that the chickens must be maintained within the coop. And I actually got cornered at the fish fry, at St. Pat's Fish Fry by quite a few people, by 6 people in fact. All those 6 people approached me because they saw the notice within the paper on the chicken coops, and they were not in favor of it. I did talk to people in my district. I did find some people that were okay with chickens. 3 of them, they sat there and said that if chickens were allowed, hey, they'd have chickens. But if it's not gonna be applied evenly across the board to everybody, where everybody's allowed to have chickens, they'd much rather not even have the ordinance, because they don't see it as it is fair. There was a handful of people that could care less either way, but the resounding amount that I got was no, they don't want chickens. And they gave various reasons and stuff like that. And not every community that we're surrounded with allows chickens. Kaukauna doesn't allow chickens, Kimberly doesn't allow chickens. And Combined Locks actually allowed chickens until 2012, when they actually revoted it and actually took chickens out of the ordinance. And so, not every city allows chickens. A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't. I do have concerns about chickens, eventually down the road. Over in Utah, they've been allowing chickens for a while in some of their cities. There's one park in Ogden that has about 200 chickens running around in it, because when they stopped laying eggs, the people just let the chickens loose. And it may not be happening around here right now, but that's something to consider for, further on down the road. And Nancy, you mentioned in your memo here that the $42 you do not see as being able to cover the actual expenditures the city's gonna incur by this chicken ordinance. Did I read that correctly?
Go ahead. Director McKinney.
Thank you. You're right. We did have one situation where we were called to investigate whether or not people had chickens, and it took our environmental health specialist 4 tries to get to that home. That's a significant amount of time, and this is a person that, we've all had discussions about making sure that that person is not overloaded. So I do have concerns about, complaint-driven process and then responding to complaints and the time it takes to do that.
When drafting the ordinance, did anybody look farther than the local communities that we have? Did they look at other states that have had chicken ordinances for much longer and see what type of expense it was upon the municipalities in different areas?
I checked with the city of De Pere, who's had a chicken ordinance since 2012, and I asked if they'd had any increase in salmonella related to backyard chickens, and she did provide me with a report. We have a Wisconsin Electronic Disease Surveillance System, and there has not been, they have had salmonella, and so have we, but it's not been attributed to backyard chickens. I did check with the city of Appleton, although it's not been in place long enough, but both municipalities have had responses. The City of De Pere health officer did explain to me that that was one thing. They did have complaints about noise and complaints about smells or odors, and that needed to be responded to. So that was, they do have complaints.
Okay, thank you, thank you. There's a lot of, I understand, when people are talking about the benefits for chickens, but there's also a lot of negatives I think everybody has to take into consideration also. And again, I think there are a few aspects of this. I mean, if the ordinance doesn't state, it states the size of the chicken coop, how it has to be maintained and look and all that, but yeah, I don't see anything in here that says that whoever has chickens has to keep it within the coop all the time. So, I mean, does that mean that, can someone tell me if that means, if that needs to be addressed also?
I believe that was the intent of the ordinance, so, and again, that's why we have these types of processes to go through that. So I would certainly make sure if this does go beyond this board, at the time of council, that amendment would be added to clearly identify that we are not promoting loose chickens. They are supposed to be within a chicken coop and run. Is that correct, Nancy?
And how would you, as far as the ordinance stating that you're only allowed 4 cats and dogs, licensed cats and dogs, was there a reason that wasn't addressed with the chickens? I mean, it's going to be an outside pet, and
Can I go to the first one first about
oh, sure, yeah,
keeping,
no,
keeping
it's just, yeah, these
hens
are all questions.
in the coop? I think that keeping hens in the coop and in the run is a common sense thing for these pet owners, because if they don't, their chickens are very vulnerable to prey. Hawks, owls, those sorts of things. So that's what a responsible pet owner would do in this situation.
Right, and the reason why I asked that is because, when I did a whole bunch of research on this, I mean, there's been a lot of communities that wanted chickens. They did the chickens, and it was in the coop, and the next thing that the communities knew, and a lot of them went for it, is to let them run around the yard, as long as, they had a fence or something like that to be able to keep them in the yard. And it just, I don't know if a lot of this was even considered. And again, it just, I don't know why a pet would have to go through sustainability. I mean, to have a, does a sustainability board normally have to okay a pet, a certain type of pet, and same with the health department? I mean, I know the health department's gonna check up on the chickens and all that, make sure everything's clean and all that, but again, if it's a pet, there's no other pet that I know of that the health department goes around checking on to make sure the doghouse is at a certain standard, that, the yards are cleaned and the whole 9 yards. I mean, it just seems.
Yeah,
Director McKinney, can you verify that, please?
we do, we do respond to a number of complaints related to dogs, especially bites, and also if yard is unkept or if there's a
You do.
concern about health hazards, they are investigated.
Okay.
I did want to mention one thing, your first question about me looking a little bit broader at, outside of the adjacent communities on incidents of disease. And I did check with one of the state veterinarians, and we had a discussion about the salmonella cases. And she did say that in the 2018, and I did have it verified through CDC, that there were 33 cases out of 334 nationwide that were in Wisconsin. And her comment was, but remember, Nancy, it's underreported. So, you know, every time you have one case, she said the kind of rule of thumb estimate is that there's 29 that go unreported. So I just wanted to clarify that with you, that I did
Right,
do my due
right.
diligence as far
Yeah,
as
no,
checking
no,
further.
I'm not questioning that at all.
Okay.
It's just, you know, I do have these, I said these questions. And Director Schroeder, the chicken coop regulations, that went through the Plan Commission, it went through as a added structure within the yard, correct?
Yes.
Is there a reason why dog houses don't have to go through the same? I mean, because there's dog houses that are bigger than chicken coops. But is there a reason why dog houses don't go through the Plan Commission?
And that's something that is certainly, I mean, we could go probably around and around on this all day long. And I think the idea of this was to make sure that the idea was that the chicken coop itself was not the one accessory building, because they recognize that with a chicken coop, that's housing the chickens. There's a lot of, you know, materials, feed, rakes, bedding, things of that goes along with that. So oftentimes that needs that accessory building as well, that shed to store those things. So it was an attempt to make sure that it wasn't causing a new issue with, you know, materials all over the yard is my understanding.
Okay. And are portable chicken coops, ones on wheels, allowed, or does it have to be a permanent structure?
I would say that.
I can answer that.
Go right ahead.
Portable structure is not covered.
It's not covered. Okay, thank you. And,
It's not covered, or, okay, when you say it's not covered, do you also mean that they can't have it, or they could?
A person can have a portable structure, yes.
and Josh, your objection, if I understand, to the 3 feet off the property line has to do with, the property lines are the drainage aspects between the properties. And what footage off the property line do you think is appropriate?
Generally, I would say either 5 or 10 feet. Most of our drainage issues that we do have along property lines can be resolved within about a 5-foot range, but some do need to have 10 feet of grading. And that's where we run into issues with the rear yard drainage program, is people have these structures and we can't move the structures, and therefore there's no good solution for solving some of these drainage issues. So that's one thing that I did look at when I did vote no. I didn't express it that clearly at Plan Commission, but drainage issues, you know, where we do drain along property lines, I would prefer to see 10 feet off, but 5 feet, you know, we could probably make do in most cases. I was worried that if we did a 10-foot off, then we'd be eliminating chickens from a portion of the city just because of our lot sizes and accessory buildings, so that's why I voted no.
Okay. Hey, thank you. That's all the questions I have for now.
Alderman Ted Grady.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to clarify some stuff here to make sure I understand this ordinance too. I agree there might be some tweaking needed here. Maybe even the ordinance itself should not include licenses of dogs, cats, or ferret. It should just be an ordinance for chickens/hens. And that would eliminate some of the confusion. And in none of this paperwork and none of this other stuff do I see the word pet. So I don't think you can classify a chicken as a pet either. It's just, you know, type of animal that it is. So don't group that into the dog and cat family. And also, too, the $7 fee for a neutered dog and cat, especially a dog, I know that, and I think, Nancy, you touched base on that, that nearly does not cover the inconvenience charges at all, with how many complaints there are about dogs in the city of Menasha. Not just the complaints about dogs barking very loudly, also is the mess that the owners do not pick up after their dogs. it's all over. And I bet you that probably smells too. But we can argue this and for, back and forth, back and forth. And there are some nice people that came up and stated their case of instability and then, not the need for it, but would appreciate it and would like it. And these are serious people that are really looking out for the animals. They're gonna take care of the animals. They're gonna make sure they're housed right, fed right. And the number of 6, I think I talked with Dick Sturm about that, and great point, with the heat in the wintertime. This past winter, 6 probably wouldn't be keeping them warm enough to keep them going, but I understand that number, so. I think that's kind of where I'm just gonna rest at this for the rest of this argument. Thank you.
Alderman Mark Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that as aldermen, when we look at ordinances, whether we're going to create one, change one, amend one, we are supposed to, and I've learned this from numerous peoples, that we need to look out for the whole city when we look at ordinances or changes. And I just feel this ordinance, we're only looking at a few. And we need to, as aldermen, be looking at the whole city, all of 17,500, and not just 5 or 6 homes. Thank you.
I will share a few words on thoughts that I've had over the last week. My grandma raised chickens. She was a farmer. Giant chicken coop, right, on the farm, lots of chickens. She talked to those chickens every day, and she firmly believed they talked back to her. That's how people feel about their chickens. And my fondest memory of my grandma is cleaning eggs with her in her basement, packing those dozens and dozens and dozens, and she'd take them off to the grocery store because she could do that and sell them there to make money. That's what she did. And people do consider them their pets, and they will take care of them as pets. We heard from a member of the gallery today that Nina has received 2 complaints about chickens in their city over 10 years, and they know that they have 24 flocks, I think it was recorded. Appleton only has 12 thus far. Very big city, recently passed an ordinance, they have 12 flocks. Chickens are not going to overrun our city. They never will. These are, a group of people who are interested in using their yards in a different way, promoting sustainable living, teaching their children responsibility, and having pets. And we will trust them to take care of them responsibly, just like we trust our dog owners and cat owners and whatever other kind of pets are out there. My family chooses not to have pets for very specific reasons, yet I find myself picking up dog dirt at least once a week in my yard, trying to step over it while on a walk, whether that's on the road, on the sidewalk. I even have to warn my kids not to step on it while they're getting on the bus. Life in the city. The council sets the fees every year, so if we think the fees for dogs and cats need to be changed, we can do that. And the sanitarian was very much involved in drafting this ordinance. He was a big part of the process to make sure that if this were to pass, it was an ordinance that was enforceable for him if action was needed. We heard from a resident this evening who is seriously considering putting their house up for sale and leaving the city because of this issue. And another resident who mentioned those intertwined boundaries where you have a neighbor who may be in the village and one of the villages, and they're allowed to have backyard chickens for pets, and yet a resident of the city is not. We're literally on an island here, and thinking ahead towards the future, this isn't just, for me, this isn't just about the people who are interested in backyard hens now. It's about people who are looking to buy property, to own a home, to raise their family here in the future, who may be coming from another community, looking for a place to live and bringing their pets with them. And we've scratched ourselves off the list because we don't offer a place or an opportunity for them right now. So that's important as we look ahead to the future. It's important to the sustainability of our community. Alderman Rapella.
Thank you. I understand your thoughts about Menasha being the minority as far as people maybe not moving here because we don't have chickens, but I prefer to think of it as our niche. Maybe we are getting people to move here because we don't have chickens. And that could be debated till tomorrow morning. But when you think of it that way, I do know that I talked to a number of people in my district, and two particular ones today, other ones within the last week, but they do not want chickens in Calumet County. And I know we can't split our votes up, but they don't want them in the new section of our city. And from what I'm gathering, this is a neighborhood area just within a couple blocks that these people are wanting the chickens. So do we make a chicken island? Chickens can only be within these 3-4 streets. Stan's shaking his head. So that's all I will say. Thank you very much.
Seeing no other discussion, the motion is on the floor by Alderman Tom Grady to forward this ordinance to the council. That was seconded by Alderman Ted Grady. Seeing no other discussion, we'll take a roll call.
Mine's blinking, so. Whoever sold us the system, better get them in. Better have it once.
Okay, we're going to start with Alderman Tom Grady. Alderman Ted Grady. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols.
Aye.
Alderman Taylor.
Hey.
Alderman Sevenick.
No.
Alderman Langdon. And Alderman Kruger. Motion fails on roll call, 3-5.
The next item, we'll move up to item number 1, ordinance 319, an ordinance amending Title 11, Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses against public safety and the peace. This is an update to include vaping, and it is introduced by Alderman Langdon. Is it Deputy Chief? Or Lieutenant? Or
Acting Deputy Chief.
Acting Deputy Chief Czar?
Yeah, but Lieutenant Sar right now.
Lieutenant? Great.
Yes.
Lieutenant Czar.
So I understand that there's a memo that you have on it that explains it all. So unless there's other questions about it, I'd be happy to field any questions I can. Otherwise, I would defer to that memo.
Could you just clarify for everyone here and for the public listening, we have two ordinances this evening. One dealing with offenses against public safety and the peace, and the other one, offenses to, well, I guess that is pretty obvious, offenses by juveniles. So this offenses against public safety and the peace updates the ordinance to, in the tobacco ordinance
I can
to
explain.
include vaping. Thank you, Attorney Captain.
We have in the city of Menasha in our code of ordinances a separate section that deals with offenses by juveniles. And so the one ordinance, which is O-4-19, is adding a section dealing with what's currently known as vaping products. That's basically what it's doing, and it's prohibiting the possession and use and purchase of vaping products by juveniles. And then the other ordinance is what prohibits the sale of or giving away cigarettes and things like that, but what will be added, presumably if this is adopted, is vaping products cannot be sold to, given away to minors. Oh, yeah.
Big difference.
Well, it does say offenses by juveniles on our agenda. So let's take item 1 first. Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make the motion to forward to council ordinance 0-3-19. It's an ordinance amending Title 11, Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses against public safety and peace, which is vaping. And that's introduced by myself, Alderman Langdon.
We have a motion by Alderman Langdon and a second by Alderman Kruger to forward 0319 to the council. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 2 is 0419, and this is the ordinance amending the Title 11, Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances, offenses by juveniles as it relates to vaping. Alderman Langdon?
Thank you, Chair. Before I make I'll make the motion and then we can discuss. I had something to say, so I'll make the motion first. I'll make the motion to forward to council 0-4-19. It's an ordinance amending Title 11, Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances, which is offenses by juveniles, and that's vaping. That's introduced by myself, Alderman Langdon.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Langdon and a second by Alderman Taylor to forward 0419 to the council. Is there any discussion? Alderman Langdon?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that the mayor and I had lunch a while back, and he asked me, and I was very proud because he asked me if I wanted to introduce these ordinances because of my health and what I've done. And I was very proud that he said that to me, and I said absolutely. The other thing that I wanted to mention is with this ordinance that the offenses by juveniles is the police are seeing it more and more, and it's hard for them to determine, and that's why this ordinance is especially good, because they're seeing that these minors are putting weed, marijuana, into these vaping machines, I guess, and they cannot tell what's coming out. All they can see is big puff of smoke coming out, and they can't, as of right now, they cannot stop and say, hey, what's in there? So like I said, I was very honored that the mayor asked me this, and I just wanted to mention that, and that's why. Thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. And with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn by Alderman Taylor and a second by Alderman Krieger. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.